I woke up this morning.
You did?
Me woke up this morning. And
the body wakes up, you don't wake up. Yes, okay. Yeah.
And me started thinking, which is what I was going to say, me started doing my regular compulsive thinking or whatever. And so I was going, well, I'm not the doer, I'm not, I'm, all these different things with non-duality and stuff like that. And then the confusion. A lot of times for me, what feels or seems to be confusion and what the me thinks is a bad thing, it wants to figure out things. And so I'm frozen there. And the body doesn't move. And so me thinks, well, the body should move. You just can't lie here all day long. It's not depressed or anything like that. What is being experienced now is to relax with those types of things. That type of thing would actually strengthen the me and the worrying and the anxiety. So now there's something that comes in that relaxes. And then the thought came up, the body will know what to do, or something like that. And anyway, long story short, I found I was sitting up in bed, and I thought, how did I do that? I could say, well, why did I sit up in bed? And I thought, oh, I must have been motivated. And I tried to think of why. And there may have been some thought that may have felt like a motivator. But the idea is I didn't figure out how to sit up again out of bed and start my day. It just happened. And so I didn't have to figure it all out, and so forth and so on. And anyway, I just continue being able to not identify so much with these thoughts and patterns. I hear sometimes the idea of questioning those things, like who's thinking and stuff like that, and where does the thought start, where does it end, and all those types of things. And those things are helpful for the me because it really begins to see that there's no really strength in me identifying them as they are me and in charge, and that they change all the time. So anyway, long story short was that was an experience of just knowing to relax. That I'm going to relax. It's kind of a knowing I'm going to relax, not worrying about it anymore as much anyway.
Was there a question?
No, it wasn't. Not at all. Is there a question? The question would be, is there a question? Yeah, there was a question, like when the word knowing comes up. Knowing is associated with understanding or intellect. a lot of times. But I don't think it's associated that way in non-duality.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So the knowing in non-duality is not in time. It's not in time. While we usually say in the dualistic realm, we talk of knowing as a process. It's more like a cumulative process, you see. But so there is the process of knowing is how it unfolds. You have a certain contemplation. You're looking at something. There is thought. There is thought that is operating. And at some moment, at some point, the thought brings you to the edge of a cliff. And you fall off the cliff. That's understanding.
That's what?
That is understanding. And then the next thought arises, which is a post-understanding. So there is a pre-understanding thought and a post-understanding thought. The last pre-understanding thought is the thought that triggers the understanding. It sort of brings you to, that's it. It sort of provides the last link of the puzzle. And when the last link of the puzzle is provided, then there is no more thought. There is aha. There is getting it. And then the next thought arises, which is a post-understanding thought, which basically goes, it formulates what it understood. It says, it formulates the formulation of the understanding. So it's understanding is not a time. There is a process of time before understanding and after understanding. You see? But understanding itself is not in time. It's not a cumulative process. So it's in the process of time, it's a discontinuity of time. Understanding is a discontinuity of time.
And is that the same as knowing? Or somewhat similar?
Knowingness is that precipice of understanding that has expanded. That is expanded. So it's a Grand Canyon of understanding. Knowing is the Grand Canyon of understanding. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but it's a very large, sort of. So knowingness is a quality of consciousness. So consciousness is ever knowing. It's eternal knowingness. It never ceases to know. It is knowingness itself. But it's not the only quality of consciousness, but that's one of the quality of consciousness. Like they say, God is omniscient, is all-knowing, but also omnipresent and omnipotent, yes? In religious terms. Yes. So knowingness is one of the, let's say, characteristics of consciousness.
So
it's like an open space. It's like a circle. It's like a circle that has no center and an infinite diameter. That's the knowingness of consciousness. It's like an eternally shining light. Eternal sunshine. The eternal sunshine of consciousness.
So it's not a combination. It's not something that...
No.
Yeah. So what I was really um, I then am not um, understanding the understanding piece, um, because it sounds like it's the same as knowing, but because I see it as is cognating, understanding is images and other things, and putting them together and putting them in orders, which what the brain does. And
That's not understanding. This is the process that leads to understanding.
this is a process that what?
Leads to understanding.
Okay, so it's a process. In this case, it's a process that leads.
Leads to understanding, but understanding is not a process. Understanding is not in time. It's not of the mind. Understanding is not the mind that understands. Understanding comes onto the mind.
Yeah.
It's not the mind that understands. The mind is transformed via understanding.
Yeah. Okay. So, which to me is, just to me, it doesn't matter for me. I just ask that because to me it sounds like knowing. Because understanding is always associated with, understanding something, something that's there and cognating it.
When you understand, there is nothing to be understood.
Yes. Yeah. So that understanding, I could use that word understanding, but I could also use the word knowing. Yes.
You could say that understanding is a flash of knowing, a teeny tiny spark of knowing. But knowingness is consciousness. That's the eternal sunshine. So you might have various experiences of understanding along your journey, your spiritual journey, and they will all culminate to eventually stabilize you in consciousness. So they're like glimpses, let's say, I'm talking about understandings that relate to consciousness. I'm not talking about, for example, understandings that relate to science or understanding that relates to a certain problem, scientific problem, mathematical problem, or understanding a joke, which is, leads to humor, laughter. I'm talking about understanding that relates to consciousness. Yeah? Understanding, for example, understanding that the perceiver perceives the perceived, but the perceived does not perceive the perceiver. That's an understanding that relates to consciousness. So there are understandings, glimpses, let's say, that relate to consciousness, that relate to you, what you truly are. You sort of get it. I understand that. I get that. I get that. I think I got that. And I got it. You see, these are understandings that relate to consciousness, and they lead to the knowingness, to presence. They lead to the unfolding, to the revelation of consciousness, the full revelation of consciousness.
I understand.
So in satsang, you get some glimpses.
Sure.
And also, of course, in satsang, you also get the unseen, soaking in presence that the mind is not privy to.
Without, it's not without language, but with the same thing as awakening and experiences. I mean, one can say, there's a play that, there's this awakening of knowing, there's, thought drops and so forth and so on, but then it comes back. So there are, you could say, use the word places or experiences like that, or awakenings of that you then say understanding, I guess, in a sense. That sounds like it's similar to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there are glimpses in the reality of consciousness. There are understandings about consciousness that occur, that they shift. Every understanding about consciousness shifts has an effect, a profound effect on the revelation of consciousness. But some of the effects might be immediate, sprout immediately, and some of the effects sprout downstream. But they will.
It's as if the more the mind tries to understand, the farther I get from understanding.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the mind, there is no mind. Meaning, there are thoughts. I love my mother. New York City is a wild city. There are thoughts, there are perceptions, there are bodily sensations that appear perceived, but we never perceive a mind. When I use the term mind, I use it in two different ways. One of them is the thoughts. We refer to thoughts as mind. Okay, so basically, we're really talking about thought. Mm-hmm. Memory, thoughts, beliefs. So it's a synonymous word too. And also, I use the term mind to refer to all phenomenal experiences, all perceptions, sensations, thoughts, memories. I refer to that as the mind. But in fact, there is no mind. It's not like there is an actual mind and you open the door of the mind and you find thoughts inside and sensations and perceptions. It's not like that. So, but coming back to what you were saying, in either case, whether we're using the term mind to refer to just thoughts, or whether we're using mind to refer to the conglomerations of thoughts, perceptions, and sensations, in either case, the mind is perceived. Thoughts are perceived, memories are perceived, sensations are perceived, bodily sensations or perceptions, trees, mountains are perceived. What is perceived is known. Right? So, oh, right? I know, New York City, I know the Pacific Ocean. So the mind is known, but the mind is not knowing. New York City doesn't know anything. A thought doesn't know anything. An oak tree doesn't know anything. Doesn't know a poplar tree, doesn't know a maple tree, doesn't know a thought, doesn't know a toothache. So the mind is known, is not knowing. Only consciousness is knowing. I, what we refer to as I know, I perceive, I hear, I see. When I say consciousness, I'm referring to I. Not I, a female, I, a male, I. The I of consciousness. I am, the beingness, presence, I. What truly hears these words right now? I hear these words right now. And this I is borderless presence, is borderless, is peace, is beauty, it's magnificence. That is the I. The I is is joy and freedom, complete the ecstasy of being. It's bliss, it's ananda. That's I. Right now, right here, right now. I. Bliss, presence, beauty, love. Fantastic presence, beauty. Exquisite presence. Peace, stillness, happiness, freedom. That is what knows. It knows itself as this infinite beauty, this love, this compassion. And it knows the world, body, mind. It knows this perception here, these lovely friends here. Yes. the mind doesn't know. Whenever we confuse, we think, oh, the mind can know. We're confusing the known to be knowing or to have a knowing capacity. But knowingness doesn't belong to what is known. Knowingness only belongs to consciousness, which is really beautiful because I am that. I am this consciousness, this presence. So it's really beautiful that I am this knowingness. Effortlessly so. Effortlessly so. Effortlessly so. It's a free flow. This is an important confusion that happens, that we confuse mind with consciousness. We imagine, we mistake mind, meaning what we know, to be knowing. And the reason why there is this confusion is because we believe that consciousness is a body-mind. In other words, we believe that I am a body. But a body is not what you are. A body appears to you, and it disappears to you every night in deep sleep. It's even right now, it's disappeared to you. I mean, except if you have an itch, it will appear to you as an itch, maybe. But most of the time, you're not. There's no body. I mean, there is really no body. There's no body. Okay, when there is hunger, okay, there's a body that's appearing as hunger, right? Okay, so we feed the body, and then the body is, if we ate too much, then the body continues to appear as indigestion. But otherwise, there's no body. Nobody walks around saying, oh, I'm a body, 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 or I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. No, you only say I'm a man when somebody asks you, hey, you're a man or a woman? So you're kidding me? I'm a man. Otherwise, you know you're a man or a woman. Whoever thinks about that, they have some sort of psychosis to be thinking about that. You see, it's the same thing with happiness. We don't walk around saying, I'm happiness, I am peace and happiness, I am love, I am beauty. You don't. You are that. We only notice the unhappiness. Oh God, I'm just troubled, I'm worried, what's going to happen to me, my health, my stomach, my belly, my car, how am I going to do it now? And back from my vacation, what's going to happen to me, how I'm going to figure it out, and my retirement. That's where we're aware of the unhappiness. But when we're not worried about this and that, don't think about this and that, we're not aware of our happiness, but we are happiness, peace and happiness. Now, in a way, you could say that the revelation of the self is just the ordinary mind that's free of unhappiness. What they say in Buddhism, they say the ordinary mind is extraordinary. But there is a little footnote. The footnote is the ordinary mind that has become free of unhappiness. That is the extraordinary mind. And some people confuse that. They say, oh, the ordinary mind is extraordinary. I'm enlightened. Yeah, so my neighbor is an asshole. I hate him. I don't. Oh, my cousin. I know. And yeah, I toss and turn at night. I'm worried a little bit about my retirement, but so what? This is the ordinary mind, and that's extraordinary. I'm awake, and this is the way we're enlightened. We're all enlightened. And they go around and say, we're all enlightened. Don't you realize we're enlightened? You're enlightened. They're unhappy and enlightened. No, that's no. This is, but they're very convincing. Yeah, people, they're very convincing. People go to their conferences and hear them say, "We are all is one, all is well, including misery." Yeah, so a little misery. So what? Yeah, but what do you mean by a little misery? Like what? 50%. Yeah, 50% is good. So, but if I hear somebody that's saying, 49%, I'll go for the 49%. Okay, well, I'm saying 0.00001%. How about that? Then you can be unhappy once every... All right, once a year. How about that? Once a year. But why? Why be unhappy once a year? No, once every 2 years.